Now you might be wondering, how does one pacifist run Dark Souls 3? And that's a good question. I haven't thought that far ahead, but I can tell you the plan for Gundyr. So apparently, if you take the sword out of Gundyr and then quit the game while he's getting up, you can load your game and you'll be outside of the boss ring. Running back in will start the fight, but if you can get out quickly and go fetch a friend, you can have them fight at the fog gate. Supposedly. And luckily for me, everyone else left. So it was just me, Gundyr, and this weird dog that followed me over here. Oh, this is gonna be a minute, isn't it? This is me from the future, and yes, it will. So I'll take a second to explain the rules of the challenge while past me deals with that. So to start off with, what do I mean by pacifist? Well, it pretty much means I can't perpetrate any action that would directly deal damage to an entity. Like what Gundyr is about to do to my face. Pretty much anything and everything else is on the table. Summoning someone or something, using game mechanics like gravity or status effects, using other enemies, even automated turrets would be on the table if there was one in the game. Whatever really, as long as I can reasonably pin the blame on something else and it keeps the run interesting. That's pretty much the basics of it, so it's time I send you back to the madness. Is that it? Is that it? Thank God being alive is optional. Now that we're past Gundyr, Vordt's on the chopping block. But we are going to need some friends if we're going to take on that guy. So he'll be missed dearly. I need to reallocate my S's and get some more stats. Well, time for a grind sesh. Get 'em, boys! Oh my God! No, come on. One more, Albert. Come on. Let's go, Albert! Albert, my goat. Albert, my clutch. Oh, that was so sick. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I expected that to take a lot more tries, a lot more time, go a lot longer, but we did it, baby. Alright, with Vordt out of the way, there's a lot for us to do between now and the next bosses. So we got business to make and friends to do. So we got Pyro Daddy, our goat Sigurd, Irina, our queen, this guy, and some more friends for later. We also picked up the Braille Divine Tome of Kareem in order to upgrade our heal. But there was one problem. Even with all of that, I still didn't have access to a good way to deal with the Sage. I could summon this guy, but since there's multiple targets to attack, I would just be praying that he attacks the right one, let alone lasting long enough to live the fight. But that's when I stumbled upon the Quelaag Pyromancer Tome, and the spell Poison Mist that will let me finally be able to function independently. This spell makes my breath immeasurably stinky. And, I mean, it's not my fault if I walk around exhaling as humans do and someone passes out from breathing it in. I don't think it was SpongeBob's fault when he walked around with some bad breath, is all I'm saying. And although I may be ugly, and I might even be proud, my ugliness isn't what's about to take care of the sages. But with this, I wanted to try out the fight and see what just little old me could do. And I actually got pretty far. The second phase turns into a bit of a bullet hell where I'm trying to apply the poison to the right sage and dodge long enough to let it do its work. And if you get a good spawn point for the real sage, then you can sit up in the corner and dodge the crystal rain, which made things a bit easier. Finishing the Crystal Sages is a nice step of progress to have under the belt. Unfortunately, however, a problem hath reared its head, which is I got a lots of spells and not a lots of slots. So I think it's time for us to get a new Mauska tool. There is a staff with a weapon art that has a similar effect to our recently acquired breathing form, which is a Storyteller staff. Unfortunately, the only way to get it is from Corvian Storytellers, and they tend to be surrounded by a lot of dudes. But if I just so happen to go invisible,
I affectionately refer to it as stealth mode,
and do a little bit of exhaling, then a nearby individual holding the aforementioned staff takes a nap, and we have ourselves a brand new vape staff. Finally! With this, not only do we get to keep the ability to handle enemies ourselves while opening up spell slots, but we also get to use it for casting sorceries. We took our vape staff to the cathedral and did the standard routine. Then we found patches, got tricked by patches, watched the universe mysteriously unalive patches. Overall a good time. We also got to help the homie Sigurd out by getting his armor back to him. And since we were in the area, I thought, why not try the Deacons fight? And I didn't even get one Deacon down. Since the Deacons were going to take a bit more than I expected, I thought it'd be best to take on the Abyss Watchers first. I already went through the swamp and got some nerd books for a nerd friend to teach us some nerd spells. And we also got the Dream Chaser's Ashes for Cirrus's questline. And now I did all of the leveling for Yul since it was the latest we'd be able to do it, plus we get a cool friend to summon for the fight at the same time. With that, we were good to see what the Abyss Watchers were capable of. They kind of tag teamed my homie, and since I only have the one for this fight, I kind of needed to make them count. So I had to keep up with healing and get the team killing Abyss Watcher back in the fight whenever they stopped to huff the fog wall, and that got us through the first phase alright. The second phase of the Abyss Watchers is significantly harder than the first phase, and it was going to take all of my skills and repertoire to get through this fight. Nice! Whew, after such a difficult and arduous battle, the catacombs weren't anything too troublesome. A surprising number of people slipped due to their poor footing. Someone should really check in on that and get the place fixed up. After making my way all the way through the catacombs looking for Wolnir's fight, I found this weird cup that made the room really dark. It kind of stressed me out, so I hit my vape staff to calm myself a bit and to stay collected, and luckily the room got brighter again for some reason. No clue what happened with Wolnir though. Guess he was on vacation or something. Going to the Demon King, there were only 2 summons available to me with the Great Swamp Cuculus and Nightslayer Sorig. But when I went back to get invaded by Sorig so I could summon him, I wasn't able to since Wolnir wasn't home. So I could only walk in with the strongest NPC in the game. And we were ready to take on the world and show everyone the power of Vizis and the Great Swamp Cut. So since there were 0 summons available for this fight for some peculiar reason, I played Ring Around the Rosie with the Demon King until his lungs ceased to be lay vibing with lay vaping. Turns out, the ads were right.
But nothing is as scary as the facts.
With that whole little side adventure smoked out, I was hoping to have thought of or discovered some kind of method of dealing with the Deacons since the poison didn't work too well, and the summons weren't a huge success, but I hadn't thought of anything. But I've gone too far to end it here. So, since I'm stronger than I was before, with better stats and a better poison, and with the dried fingers to get Cirrus in the game to help out too, we ran it back. In Phase 2, the name of the game was micromanaging. I had to keep an eye on my homies so we could keep the damage going, as well as watching to make sure the curse spell wasn't being charged up, since it would end the run instantly if it was able to go through. For some reason it didn't really work on the tall guys, but luckily the fight ended before I had to worry about what to do. Well, that worked out. Whew. If you asked me to run that back same setup, might be a little more difficult. Next up was Pontiff, and the journey there wasn't too eventful except for two things. One being meeting up with our homie Sigurd, cooking up a mad Estes soup.
I know. Won't you join me for dinner? I make a fine Estes soup. I've got some stewing right now. Even we undead deserve a little normalcy from time to time.
And another was the first player summon sign I saw in the run. I'd been playing offline, but I need to be online to use the dried fingers, so big ups, dog. Doing God's work out there. Since I was all fingered up, Pontiff was going to experience the raw and unadulterated power of friendship. Man, friendship is really OP. After Pontiff is typically Aldrich, but I wanted to head over and do Yhorm first. Yhorm is possibly the most delicate fight that I have needed to do up until this point. Since Yhorm is immune to poison, and I have no way of dealing with him myself, and since there's no summons for this fight, there's only one person I can rely on. Nay, only one person I would rely upon in a situation like this.
Long may the sun shine. Until we meet again, comrade. Even we undead deserve a little normalcy from time to time. You are a saint. I've my own road to take, and a duty to fulfill. Very soon. Yhorm, old friend. I, Seaford of the Knights of Catarina, have come to uphold my promise. The sun shine upon this Lord of Cinder. Without you. Now, for a final toast to your valor and my old friend Yhorm. Long may the sun shine. You are a true friend. Best of luck with your duty.
Best of luck to you too, buddy. Best of luck to you too. Now with Yhorm out of the way and an onion-shaped hole in my heart, there was one more major boss that we needed to defeat before we can move on to the final stretch, which was Aldrich. But there was at least a little bit of fun to be had on the way. For one, as a scientific endeavor, I wanted to see if I could sneak behind the alligators in the well like the one on the bridge did to me. And turns out, you can. However, as a point of note, they do get angry if you get close, so you gotta be aware of that. I also found out I was able to get married. This will be really awesome since it unlocks the Lord of Hollows ending and lets us fight the final boss with friendship. But that whole stabbing part does kind of go against my character's pacifist lifestyle, so unfortunately, no maidens for me. And the bad news just keeps piling up because, like Yhorm, Aldrich is immune to poison, and the only summon for the fight was, well. So this means that we're going to need to break out the DLC content. Going to the Ashes of Ariandel and skeeting by legitimately everything allows us to grab a forbidden spell, the likes of which households have fought wars over. Control of the thermostat. You see, Aldrich may be immune to the toxicities lying within the vape staff, but the freezing cold of a 60-degree room? No living creature alive would be able to survive that. Plus, my character is embered up, quite literally on fire all of the time. I think I deserve to be able to cool off every now and then. And now that we can deal with Aldrich, we can beat... Oh man, that's not a lot of damage. Well, I'm not a stranger to an arduous battle. With a little bit of time and perseverance, we can... Alright, so this might take a little more than I thought it would. The heal puts my stamina into super red, so I don't get to act out of it for a long while. And I've been neglecting upgrading my health a bit, so I think it might finally be time to grind for some more levels. Now that we leveled up our stamina, have some more health, I think it's time to gauge the fruits of our labor. My heal still takes all of my stamina? Alright, it may seem like all of that grinding was a waste, but it was actually still super helpful, because I don't go nearly as far into the negative with stamina after using it, which means it will regenerate a lot faster. Not exactly what I was hoping for as a result of all that grinding, but I'll take what I can get. But now, and for real this time, we're gonna take down Aldrich. Let's go. Finally! Oh man. I don't think I've ever had to play more perfect Dark Souls in my entire life. The Dancer was a boss that I've been fearing for a while, because the Dancer is not only immune to poison too, surprise surprise, but they're also immune to frost. And with Vordt gone, there is absolutely no one to summon either. Every single tool and method that I've developed up until now is unusable against this boss. But I picked up something else while we were in the DLC just for this, which is Floating Chaos. Now what this spell does is I summon an orb that targets something and shoots 3 shots at it, then disappears. I can see the potential moral and ethical dilemma. Hey, it's Future Vizis again. I just wanted to cut in since I had a whole thing about the potential issues of using Floating Chaos, since it's the closest thing to an attack I've used in the whole game. But it took way too long, so I'm just going to give you the quick and dirty instead. To me, the orb is kind of like a summon. I hit a button, then an entity comes out, and that entity will attack things in my stead. Now the difference between them is that with the orb, I can control who it attacks by locking onto them, which then feels kind of like attacking. But if I don't lock on, then it's all on Floating Chaos on who to target and who to attack. And I think that randomization and agency of free will absolves me of any and all killing. With that out of the way, it's boss time, baby! Whew, okay. That was a tight one. Alright, now we have a little bit of a boss rush before the Twin Princes. I want to beat every boss in the game if I can, and there's a few side bosses on the chopping block, so let's roll them out. The first was a boss that I've been neglecting up until this point since, like the Dancer, it is immune to both poison and frost. But now with Chuck, we can have a gender reveal party in the only way you should, by disobeying everything Smokey the Bear has ever taught us.
Only you can do
Tree done, Basin acquired, Lulith gaming. Next is Ocedos. The only thing stronger than Ocedos' schizophrenia is his freaking attacks. Also, a cool thing, since the thermostat control hits multiple times and Chuck hits multiple times, it's actually possible to get multiple freeze activations off back to back, which I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty Kinder Bueno. Gundyr is pretty similar to Ocedos in that attacks be fast and attacks be hard. But for this, I actually get to have a friend. So with the power of friendship and anime, Gundyr didn't stand a chance. The Ancient Wyvern is a pretty simple gimmick boss. You run up the scary pathway of spooky snakies and do a plummeting attack. Oh yeah. Well, guess we gotta do it the old-fashioned way. Using the bait stat, thermostat, and Chuck, Wyvern was taken care of pretty well. The next boss, the Nameless King, is known to be one of the hardest bosses in the game. And this time was no exception. Like every other boss in the late game, the Nameless King is also immune to poison. Why do I even bring this thing places? And since Hawkwood the Deserter, well, deserted us, all we've got is control of the thermostat and Chuck for this fight. And hopefully, that's enough. Dang it! Let's go, baby! Man. That was a lot of just learning my timings. Now that all the side bosses were finally finished, it was time to get back on with the mainline bosses, which means the Dragonslayer Armor. For this fight, I decided to summon this guy and just go bananas on the boss while he distracted him, but then he didn't even enter the boss fight! Bro, where was he at? I fought alone and pretty much debuffed it. What? Where was the boss go? Is he just sitting at the door? So then I decided to finish up Sirius's quest and did it with them instead. After getting all through the library and adventuring around, I made my way to the Twin Princes where I had my homies Sirius and Orbeck waiting for me. With 2 summons and only my poison unavailable to me, again, this fight was going to be easy as pie. No rest for the wicked, I suppose.
Oh dear. Another dogged contender. Welcome, unkindled one. Purloiner of cinders. You've done quite enough. Now have your rest. among the accursed.
And you remain sucking my dick, big guy. We've beaten every single boss in the game up until this point. And there's one final challenge that awaits us. But you know, we did borrow some power from the DLC. So I think it's only right we go and visit the DLC bosses too. The DLC bosses were going to require a bit more juice since they're cut above the main game bosses. The one exception to that is the very first DLC boss, the Champion's Gravetender, since it wasn't too crazy. I hit up the Vape staff to deal with the Beta Wolves and the Gravetender, then I used more of the kit on the Sith wannabe, and we got through okay. The next fight is where the difficulty really started to show, which was with Sister Friede. This fight was absolutely brutal. The only really bad part is that I can't use Frost since Friede is immune, and she's also not a huge fan of poison. And since Friede was so mobile during the fight, I found it insanely difficult to get her around the vape cloud long enough to have it apply. I did find out you can get her to attack Ariandel in the middle, and she'll stay relatively still so you can get the poison off, which you need a lot of. The second phase is where things start getting dicey. This is the part of the fight where the Gael summon comes in, and both Friede and Ariandel target him. And since you really need him for the third phase, healing him can be pretty difficult, you need to get through this phase fast. Getting off a lot of the tried and true combo of Icy Hot works on Ariandel since they're not immune to Frost, and the more you can do it without getting interrupted, the better. With the second phase out of the way, there is no time for rest, because Gael needs healed so that he can be at full health. For some reason, he always runs to Ariandel to beat up the corpse. Couldn't tell you why, but it ruined a few of the early runs since I missed him with the heal. As soon as Gael is topped off, your entire attention is on Friede. It becomes a stressful situation, and there's no better way to deal with it than hitting that bait for all it's worth. There is one opportunity to get the poison off when Friede starts standing up, and if you don't get it, the DPS requirements go way up and the fight becomes insanely more difficult. After that, it's all about keeping Gael healthy and letting the Chucks help out to do some damage and get some aggro. The entire process sounds simple enough, but it took a significant amount of trial and error to figure the fight out. And after hours on hours of trying this boss, we finally got it. Where did we do it? Oh my god. Jesus Christ, that took forever. I was literally on my last run too, and if I didn't do it, I was gonna go grind for a ton of dexterity so I could get some new ring slots. I might have even gone to the DLC to get some of the the Ring City DLC in order to get some of the +3 rings. Oh my god. That was tough. After that whole ordeal, I wanted to prepare a bit better for the Demon Princes, especially since the Princes are another one that's immune to frost and poison, and they also resist fire, so I'm not going to be doing a whole lot. I do at least get to have 2 summons for this fight with Lap and Gael, but since there are also 2 bosses at the start, it'll be a lot harder for me to keep them alive. The first thing I wanted to do was get 10 Sunlight Medals so that I could get the Oath of Sunlight spell so that I can buff their attack and defense, but before I even got 1 Sunlight Medal, I got enough souls to level up and use a Sunlight Straight Sword instead, so I just did that. The second thing I wanted to do was get the Talisman from the end of Sirius's questline so that I could poise cast and not get interrupted as much while I'm healing, since that could be a problem. I also finished Leonardo's questline so that I could get Rosaria's soul and transpose it into Bountiful Sunlight to give the boys some health regen. Now since we're all set up, I met up with Lap, and we made our way over to the boss fight arena. The only thing left to do was buff up the homies and give it a go. Actually went really well. I think we cleaned it up a bit, then we could actually do it. So I set back up and gave it another go. Oh, fine, if you want to play like that. I continued to try and beat the boss from there, and Although I died a good bit, there were some runs that were really close. I found out that I could bait one of the princes at the start and let Lap and Gael beat up the other one, which would give me some more essence to work with in the second phase. But I just felt like I just barely didn't have enough to go all the way. I think I'll go for one more attempt. I might need to go and grind a little bit to buff up my healing, just to help give that extra little push. But I think I'll do one more good attempt before I go, because I think we're just right there. Let's go, baby! Oh, man. You know, I know it's crazy to say after having gotten this far, but playing this game as a pacifist is hard, man. Up next was a boss that I was a bit afraid of for a while. Dark Eater Midir. It is immune to poison and frost, resists fire, and only has one summon, which, I will be frank, is not very Kinder Bueno. There is no good answer for Midir with everything that I've built up until now, but there is one trick that I have left in the tank that I've been holding on to. In order to be able to use it though, I first need to get to Midir. First I had to get past the arrow guys, which was fun. Getting through the ring city in the swamp wasn't too bad, and Midir's tantrum hurted it, but we got through it. I even got to see this guy slip, and that felt nice. The real problem came up when Midir came up on the bridge. I could just run past and gun into the boss room, but you can't fight Midir until you knock him off the bridge. And since it's still immune to poison and frost and heavily resists fire, well, we're gonna be here a minute. Now that I know just strong arming it with Chuck is not a good option, I need to pull out that trick I mentioned earlier, which is Pestilent Mist. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Pestilent Mist is very much an offensive spell that would be considered attacking, and you are right, if I cast it on them. But if I were to cast a Pestilent Mist somewhere where the enemy isn't, and the enemy charges into the Pestilent Mist of their own accord, I think the blame falls onto them. That's not on me. And I know what some of you might be follow-up thinking. Vizis, if you were planning on using Pestilent Mist already, why not use it on Midir on the bridge? And I would have loved to, but the P-Mist, which is what I'll refer to it as from now on, requires the enemy to move into it for it to not be an attack. And well, I don't know if you saw from the montage, but Midir don't move. But now with all of that prep work done, all that was left was to face Midir. Oh man, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous for that one. After all of the previous difficult boss fights with the Nameless King, the Twin Princes, Sister Friede, the Demon Princess, and Midir, this next one is going to be a nice breather. The Church of Filianore just has a few NPCs that, after all of these crazy bosses, will be pretty easy to deal with. I'm not even going to summon patches for this one because, 1, patches is stinky, and 2, I'm not even going to need them. This will be a chill fight, and I'll probably only need to use Chuck and my Frost anyway. Oh. First run didn't go that well, but now that I'm more familiar with the fight, the second time will go a lot better. And by that, I mean the third time would be when we... You know, I don't really like patches, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I was just afraid that with a summon, it'll almost be too easy. Okay, this was supposed to be a jobber fight. I was supposed to walk in, make the big health bar 0, and walk out. Why on earth is it so hard? They have an infinite amount of enemies to spawn in, heal up the whole group whenever they get low, and Pashes just sits there and blocks the whole time. I can't even give it the amount of doing stuff with spells like Vow of Silence because the main boss's attacks are all weapon arts or something apparently. And unless I reapply the Vow on frame 1, the ads get their heal off anyways. I had no clue this fight was going to be as difficult as it is for a no attack run. I don't have any other special tricks up my sleeve to approach the fight in a new way or otherwise overcome it. But I do still have one idea left. It comes from a very wise superhero who once said,
"Random bullshit, go!"
Cool. I was hoping to have a bit of an easier fight as a warm-up to Gael, but at least I'm past it. The fight against Gael gets to be a bit of a brawl. All of my repertoire will work, from the Poison, Frost, Chuck, and the P-Mist. It's a no-hold-bars clash between me and Gael. I'm a little nervous since Gael's a strong boss, but I think we'll be able to get it.
That thing, your dark soul.
Trying out my options, he seems a little tricky to poison, but other than that, it works pretty well. The Frost is, a little lackluster. Plus, Gael is a lot more aggressive than I anticipated, so I don't think I'll have time to set up the Icy Hot combo. A good run nonetheless, though. I learned a lot, and I think I'll do better in the next one. For this run, I'm just going to focus on finding my poison timings and keeping my P-Mist up and finding out how to kite around that. The strategy was actually working out pretty well. I think after I learn the next phases, this could genuinely be the strategy that takes it home. I know he gets more aggressive as the fight goes on, so I'm just going to try and keep my distance while I learn the fight and when I can act in it. Wait, was that it? Wait, that actually went a lot easier than I expected. What? That was literally my second try.
Noble lords of Cinder, the fire fades, and the lords go without thrones. Surrender your fires to the true heir.
I guess there's only one fight left. No summons, no gimmicks, no special cheeses. Just me, all the tools I've curated up until now, and him. Let's give this one final go, shall we? That is Dark Souls 3 beaten without attacking. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Let's get our ending. Oh, fuck.